The purpose and the plan is to silence you, silence me, silence us into submission. They want to silence us into submission. Thank you so much for liking your comments and subscribing to the channel. Please share this with your friends. Smash that like button, smash the subscription bell, share this with everybody you know. We're trying to make sure people understand that they're not victims, that they are empowered for greatness, and all this stuff that's out here that's telling them otherwise is false and will not benefit them in the end. So please, I appreciate that. Share that. In the beginning, God created them male and female. He created them. A statement like that in today's climate and today's culture is considered inflammatory. That statement alone 5-10 years ago would have been benign. It would have been acknowledged as truth. But as the culture has increased its descent into depravity, moral depravity, what was true before is now considered false. And what was false before is now considered true. What was normal before is now considered abnormal. What was abnormal or outside the norm before is considered normal. So when you make statements like that, you have to be prepared to deal with the backlash. Recently, Dave Chappelle and Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of the great state of North Carolina became the latest targets in the culture wars. Dave Chappelle recently had a comedy special released on Netflix called The Closer. Now, while I haven't watched it and I wouldn't necessarily condone watching because of the language, that's something I don't listen to, the message that he expressed in his commentary, in his comedy, from the snippets I've heard, from the snippets that have been posted online, were considered by some in the LGBTQ community as inflammatory, as hate speech. And so they want him canceled. They want The Closer canceled off of Netflix. All because he had the audacity to say something negative about trans people. He had the audacity to crack a joke on trans people. Governor Mark Robinson, he gave a speech back in June at a church here in North Carolina that was recently leaked on a website that is searching for right-wing things that are said, and they consider him as right-wing. And so it created such an uproar that the White House even condemned it. So you see, that's where we are. If you toe the line and are submissive, then there's no issue with you. You will not be canceled. You will not have people calling for you to lose your job. You'll be just fine. You'll be beaten into submission, into silence, but you'll be fine. But if you dare speak truth that has been established for a long time, if you dare speak that, no matter how you speak it, you can say it in the nicest way possible. It would offend somebody. No matter how you say it, you will be ostracized. You will be castigated. You will be shunned. You will be called all kind of names. You'll be called stupid and imbecile. And it's so funny. The same people that claim tolerance are so intolerant when it comes to someone who says something that they consider inflammatory. They consider hurtful. And they say that because the trans community is marginalized and has suffered abuse. And I believe that's true. And that's unfortunate. It's wrong, period. I'm from the standpoint, I love everybody. I do. I disagree with that lifestyle. What I disagree with is when it is pushed and projected, not just on me, but on children. And despite what people say, that is the case. There have been numerous and countless examples of this ideology being taught in schools. It is slipping in deceptively through books, and it's intentional. The intention is to indoctrinate our children into accepting that lifestyle. You wonder why the FBI is now working with local attorney general's offices to quote unquote monitor parents for harassment and for anything considered as inflammatory. Yeah, Attorney General Merrick Garland just submitted a memorandum to local agencies all across the nation, telling them to now be aware of school board meetings where parents may say harassing things to the school board. Isn't this crazy? Now you see what's happening between Dave Chappelle, Mark Robinson, parents that are speaking out at school board meetings. What is the common theme? They are all speaking out and pushing back against the narrative that the LGBTQ is pushing on people. I'm talking about the organization of the LGBTQ, those organizations. I'm not talking about individual people. So before you make a statement in my comments, please hear me. I'm not attacking anybody. What I am saying is that the same people that preach tolerance, that have tolerance bumper stickers on the back of their cars, are the same ones who will lash out at you if you say anything contrary about the LGBTQ community. And it's funny, Mark Robinson, Dave Chappelle, they're black men. But you know what they have going against them? They're black men who are straight. There are black men who have strong voices. There are black men who are not a part of the LGBTQ community. And you know what that makes them? Prime targets for the cancel culture. Prime targets for attacks on their character. Prime targets for them to lose their livelihoods or their jobs. Simply because they stated an opinion that is against the narrative. They stated an opinion that is against the prevailing culture. And that is what will happen. So you have to be strong. That is what will happen. If you stand for biblical values and you say that marriage is between a man and a woman, that is considered hate speech. What they're looking to do, hear me out. What the agenda is to silence all opposition. It's like McCarthyism on steroids. The objective is to silence all opposition. See, Senator Josh Hawley recently mentioned something along these lines when he talked to the Deputy Attorney General.
Back to this extraordinary letter and memorandum that the Attorney General of the United States issued yesterday. Practically every day brings new reports about this administration weaponizing the federal bureaucracy to go after political opponents. Frankly, I don't think we've ever seen anything like it in American history. I mean, for those of us who missed the McCarthy era, I guess this president is intent on bringing it to us, but with new force and new power and new urgency, unlike anything we've ever seen. Are you aware of any time in American history when an attorney general has directed the FBI to begin to intervene in school board meetings, local school board meetings?
I'm not aware, and I'm not aware that is not going on. Let me be very,
Really,
very
this
clear.
isn't about local school board meetings? That's not the subject of the memorandum? I thought that was in the memorandum.
The memorandum is quite clear. It's one page, and it asks the U.S. attorney community and the FBI special agents in charge to convene state and local law enforcement partners to ensure that there's an open line of communication to address threats, to address violence, and that's the appropriate role of the Department of Justice to make sure that we are addressing criminal conduct and violence.
At local school board meetings, let me just ask you this. Is parents waiting sometimes for hours to speak at a local school board meeting to express concerns about critical race theory or the masking of their students, particularly young children? Is that in and of itself, is that harassment and intimidation? Is waiting to express one's view at a school board meeting harassment and intimidation?
As the Attorney General's memorandum made quite clear, spirited debate is welcome, is a hallmark of this country. It's something we all should engage in. And
no, I don't think so, Ms. Monaco. With all due respect, it didn't make it quite clear. It doesn't define those terms, nor does it define harassment or intimidation. It talks about violence. I think we can agree that violence shouldn't be condoned or looked aside from in any way, swept under the rug at all. But harassment and intimidation, what did those terms mean in the context of a local school board meeting? I mean, this seems to, in the First Amendment context, we talk about the chill to speech. If this isn't a deliberate attempt to chill parents from showing up at school board meetings for their elected school boards, I don't know what is. I mean, I'm not aware of anything like this in American history. We're talking about the FBI You're using the FBI to intervene in school board meetings. That's extraordinary.
Senator, I have to respectfully disagree. That is not what
Point me to an instance.
the Attorney General's memorandum made quite clear that violence is not appropriate. Spirited public debate on a whole range of issues is absolutely what this country is all about.
Then why is it being investigated by the FBI?
It is not. When and if any situation turns to violence, then that is the appropriate role of law enforcement to address it.
The memorandum covers more than violence. It talks about intimidation. It talks about harassment. So I'm asking you to draw some lines. We do this all the time in the First Amendment context. This is the sum and substance of First Amendment law. So I expect that you'll be available and willing to do it now. Tell me where the line is with parents expressing their concerns, waiting for hours in these school board meetings. We've all seen the videos. This happened in my state. Parents have waited for hours. Sometimes the school board meetings have been ended before they can speak because the school board doesn't want to hear it. And now parents are told that if they wait and they express their views, that they may be investigated for intimidation?
I don't know who's telling them that, Senator. The job of the Justice Department is to investigate crimes. When a situation turns to violence, when and if a situation turns to violence, it's the job of the Justice Department and local law enforcement to address that. The Attorney General's memorandum simply asked the U.S. Attorney community, the FBI, and their counterparts to ensure that state and local law enforcement has an open line of communication to report threats, whether they happen in the context of election officials being threatened, whether they happen in the context of members of Congress being threatened, which the FBI responds to on a regular basis, as is appropriate. The job of the Justice Department is to address criminal conduct.
You know, all I can say is this is truly extraordinary. I think you know it is. It's unprecedented. You can't point to a single instance where anything like this has happened before. And I think parents across this country are going to be stunned to learn, stunned, that if they show up at a local school board meeting, by the way, where they have the right to appear and be heard, where they have the right to say something about their children's education, where they have the right to vote, and you are attempting to intimidate them. You are attempting to silence them. You are attempting to interfere with their rights as parents and, yes, with their rights as voters. This is wrong. This is dangerous. And I cannot believe that an Attorney General of the United States is engaging in this kind of conduct. And frankly, I can't believe that you are sitting here today defending it.
The point is they want to silence all opposition. They don't want to have a debate. They don't want to have a discussion about what does it really mean to think that you are a woman, but you're biologically a male. They don't want to have a discussion about it. They want to have a discussion to say, okay, is there something else potentially going on that's causing this? Is there something that we need to discuss? They don't want to have preachers come up and try to give biblical solutions to people's problems. They don't want that. That goes against the narrative and the agenda and the spirit of this world. I'm sorry. It goes against the narrative and the spirit of this world. And they really want black men to be effeminate. If you notice, all the black men that you see getting starring roles in movies and commercials and things like that are all effeminate or gay. I'm sorry to say that. They're either effeminate or gay. That's the narrative they're pushing. If you are a black man and you're straight, it's hard for you to get a role unless you reprogram yourself. And that's what they want to do too. They want to reprogram America into accepting this. And you know what that does? That limits the population in the country, and that reduces the amount of children being born. It depopulates this world. If you are pushing that agenda, there's something sinister behind it to depopulate this world. Period. I'm sorry. And I love everybody. But that is the sentiment. That is the push. That's why Dave Chappelle, that's why Mark Robinson, that's why parents who are speaking out about this in schools are being targeted by the government. In the case of parents and Mark Robinson, targeted by the Justice Department in the case of parents who are expressing their First Amendment right. They are expressing their First Amendment right. But yet they are going to be targeted and labeled as domestic terrorists. All because they choose to speak out. All because they choose to make their voices known. The purpose and the plan is to silence you, silence me, silence us into submission. They want to silence us into submission. It's not about tolerance. It's not about living together in harmony. It's not about unity. The only unity that they want, the people that are pushing this agenda, it is an agenda. The only thing that they want is complete power and domination over you. They will force us to accept what their lifestyle is. It went from just acknowledging them and accepting them to now affirming what their lifestyle is, affirming their lifestyle. They want us to affirm that. And as a believer, I'm sorry, I cannot affirm that. I can affirm you as a person outside of what you consider your sexual identity. I affirm you as a human being made in the image of God. I can affirm that. But I can't affirm your lifestyle. Similarly, I will not allow anybody to affirm me and consider me just as a black man. I am a Christian with black skin. They're two different things. I do not use my ethnicity or my race to identify me. But the push in today's culture is to use external or superficial things to identify people. And that leads to division, balkanism, separation. It does. And we have to push back against that. It starts with our schools. It starts in our churches. And that's another thing. Please, black pastors, please stand up and speak out about this. You see the storm coming, but yet you do not warn your congregation. You do not warn your parishioners. You do not warn your sheep. Please speak the truth. Don't be battered and beaten into submission because you're afraid of the backlash, afraid of what people will say about you. We have to stand for truth. We have to stand for righteousness. We do. Truth and righteousness. We worship him in spirit and in truth, So we stand for truth and righteousness. We have to. But we do it in a loving way. I'm not going to call anybody filth or anything like that. That's wrong. I'm not going to call anybody's lifestyle that. I disagree with it, but I will not use words that would denigrate anybody. So hear me out. I will not use any words that would denigrate anybody, but I will not affirm that lifestyle. I will not endorse it. And I don't want it taught to children in schools, and I don't want it plastered everywhere I go, in the movies and in commercials and in magazines. I will not be forced to accept that lifestyle. No matter what, I will not be forced. I will not be silenced into submission. We will not be silenced into submission because we are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. We will not be silenced into submission. So Dave Chappelle, Mark Robinson, and parents, keep speaking out. Keep expressing truth. Keep talking. Because we need this. We need this debate. We need to push back against this trajectory that this nation and this culture has been on. Where what was normal is now abnormal, and what was abnormal is now normal. And in the black community, black men, I implore you, I beseech you, stand up. You know what is right. You know what is true. Stand up and speak out in a loving way. We're not disparaging anybody. But I'm telling you, there is an agenda. There's a spirit. It's all demonic, and there's a spirit behind it. And the spirit is to effeminate men and make women masculine. It's to switch the sexes. It's to pervert God's order. But we are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. We will stand up for righteousness. We will speak the truth in love. But we will not be bullied. We will not be silenced into submission.